At 19, I was a Division I baseball player at Notre Dame, living what seemed like the dream. But behind the scenes, I was battling demons, drugs and alcohol, and the worst enemy of all, myself. Fast forward to today, I've helped over 230 sports coaches build successful online businesses, with some generating over $100,000 per month. My journey from a self-destructive athlete to building a six-figure coaching empire wasn't linear, but it taught me everything about transformation. My name is Nick, and this is how baseball's biggest head case became one of the most sought-after business coaches in sports. People ask me where I'm from, and to be honest with you, it's a pretty difficult question to answer. So I was born in Arlington, Virginia, and a couple months after I was born, my family moved to Guatemala City, Guatemala, where I actually learned to speak Spanish as my first language. We lived there for 3 years and then moved to Beijing, China, and lived there for 3 years before finally moving back to the United States when I was 6. We moved to Arizona and I lived there for about 9 years. When I was living in Arizona, baseball was pretty much my entire life, and I had a fantastic development system around me. But my freshman year of high school, my dad told me we were gonna move to Virginia. When he told me we were gonna move to Virginia, he wanted to make sure that I still got the opportunity to play the highest level baseball possible. And so my family deliberately moved into the school district of the defending state champions, Lake Braddock, and we ended up moving to Virginia that summer before my sophomore year of high school. That Lake Braddock team had 13 Division I baseball players my sophomore year, including a current Major League Baseball player. And when I had the opportunity to play on that team, it showed me what was really possible and pushed me every single day to be the best version of myself. But the problem is, while I was surrounded by so many good players, and I myself was a pretty good player, I struggled with my self-confidence and my self-worth, and I felt like I struggled often because of it. Going into my junior year of high school, I set out on a mission, and I told myself that I was gonna set the state on fire. And I had probably the best start to a high school season that I could have ever possibly imagined, until about 13 games into the year, I broke my leg. And after breaking my leg, my family and I decided that it would be best if I reclassified to give myself another year to come back and become a new version of myself. And so the rehab process was pretty difficult, but when I came back, I was nowhere near the player that I was. I lost all my power, I didn't have nearly as good of an arm, and I wasn't very fast anymore. And at the time, I was playing outfield. I was talking to all these ACC schools, but the thing was, I wasn't really good enough to play at them anymore. And so that entire summer after my junior year, I went the entire summer playing for the Canes National 16U team without landing a single Division I scholarship. While I ended up putting together a pretty decent summer, at the end of the year, I got a message from the Canes organization notifying me that the next year I would not be playing for the national team. I would be playing for one of their regional teams. And I still had no offers at the time and felt like there wasn't really anything that I could do. Going into that next summer, after getting moved down from the national team and not having any offers, I knew I had something to prove. And so I set out on a mission to prove everybody wrong and show them that I could actually play at the next level. And after I put together a pretty good summer, I actually got the opportunity to play baseball at the University of Notre Dame, and I made my verbal commitment while I was out here actually in Arizona playing at the Perfect Game World Series. I attended the University of Notre Dame the following fall, and during those fall practices, I absolutely balled out. I was one of the best hitters on the team, and I was having great practices. I was getting way stronger and was making a really good case for myself to actually start on opening day. But the problem is that I had a lot of off the field issues. When I got to college, I now had a little bit of freedom, and I was still dealing with some personal stuff. And so that's really when I got introduced to drinking and drugs and just doing a bunch of stuff that I probably shouldn't have been doing. I'll be the first one to tell you, I probably wasn't the best teammate and I wasn't very coachable. So while maybe the coaching staff didn't absolutely love me, the number one rule of college baseball is that if you play well, then nothing else matters. And so I went into the spring, actually starting on opening day, hitting leadoff. And on opening day, February 17th, 2017, I went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts to start my college career, and that's when everything started to spiral. I quickly played my way out of the lineup and continued to beat myself up to a point where there was absolutely no chance I was going to have success that year. And so I ended up getting benched and hardly playing at all past the first few weeks. And to make things worse, I actually got in trouble about halfway through the spring for being on my phone in study hall, and I ended up getting suspended for 2 practices and a game, and I had to watch my team lose on Friday night at home from the stands. And it was probably the most embarrassing moment of my entire life up until that point, and I knew that I was no longer welcome there. Following that season, I decided to transfer to San Jac, a junior college in Houston, and I somehow won the starting job at shortstop. I still had a lot of mental struggles. I was struggling with the yips. I was probably drinking and smoking more than I ever had in my entire life. Not to mention, I was still having issues with the coaches. Despite the fact that I was kind of a head case and an issue off the field, as you have seen as a recurring theme in my life, I still got the opportunity to play at the University of South Carolina because, to be fair, I was a pretty talented athlete. And when I got there in the fall, I was actually not the front runner to win the starting shortstop job. And this is coming from somebody who was playing outfield in high school, and now I'm competing for the starting shortstop job at the University of South Carolina. And so somehow, even after beating myself up and not really believing in myself, I win the starting job as the shortstop at the University of South Carolina. And as the season progressed, the theme continued. I quickly played my way out of the lineup, had more issues with the coaching staff, and had some very difficult conversations with them that kind of opened my eyes to where I might be the one with the problem. And after having an absolutely terrible year where I hit 127, I was cut by the University of South Carolina. My girlfriend dumped me. I had nowhere to play. And I finally started to realize that, maybe this was all my fault. As you can imagine, after my 3-year college baseball journey up until this point, I was pretty fed up with it. And so I decided to do the only logical thing, which is to go home, smoke a ton of weed, lift a bunch of weights, and do absolutely nothing productive with my life. While maybe on the surface, it doesn't seem like that was a great thing, I actually finally got some separation from baseball for the first time in my life, and I got a lot of clarity because when I went home, my intention was that I was probably never gonna play baseball again, and that maybe I was gonna join a fraternity at South Carolina, or maybe even transfer somewhere a little bit closer to home where my parents had just moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I randomly got a call one day from a coach at Southern Illinois University, and my first thought when they called me was, what is this place? And who is this guy? But they were willing to pay for my tuition, and they said that I would go there and play shortstop every single day, and I thought, why don't I finish out my school and get my school paid for, and if I have fun playing baseball, then that's just a bonus. And so I accepted the offer to go to Southern Illinois University and attended that school in the fall. Now, when I got to Southern Illinois, it was my goal to see how much I could party and how many different girls I could talk to. I didn't really care at all about playing baseball. I was just glad that I was getting my school paid for. And ironically enough, I came out in the spring and absolutely tore it up.
This is absolutely clobbered.
Until 18 games into the season, the entire world shut down, and I felt like the carpet was kind of pulled out from underneath me. I was really uncertain if I was ever gonna play baseball again or if I would ever get a chance. And so by the time I got back to school in the fall, because fortunately enough, I was able to have another year of eligibility, I was a completely different athlete. I was running faster than I ever had. I was hitting the ball harder than I ever had. And I had more mental clarity than I ever had in my entire life. And I realized maybe I could actually do something with this. Despite the fact that I've pretty much ruined every single opportunity I had up until this point, there was still hope for me. And so I told myself that this was my last shot I had at baseball, and I was going to put every single little thing that I had into it, that I was going to give it my full effort. And so I trained harder than I ever had, I studied more than I ever had, and I came out ready to make an actual statement. And what happened next is even crazier. Up until this point in my entire life, I only had 2 Division I home runs. And at the end of the year, I set the single season school home run record at Southern Illinois with 17. And I actually ended up helping our team have their first 40-win season in over 2 decades. At the end of the year, I had the opportunity to play with the local indie ball team and I took it as an opportunity to prepare for the draft. And as soon as I signed with the indie ball team, I knew I made a mistake. I saw the lifestyle that you live in the independent leagues and how much you get paid, and I saw that my path to actually playing in the major leagues was going to be nearly impossible. I felt like it was time that I step away from the game, because I looked around, I saw that there was a bunch of other 34, 35-year-old dudes who'd been chasing the indie ball dream for the last 15 years, and I swore to myself that I wouldn't do that, and that I had more value to offer the world than just my baseball playing ability. And so on my 24th birthday, I quit baseball, I walked away. To make things even crazier, a week later, after I quit the indie ball team, I actually started getting calls from MLB organizations asking, if I was interested in signing, and I told them no. I knew that my heart wasn't in it anymore, and I knew that I didn't want to be on the field anymore. I understand that it would have been an incredible opportunity to play affiliated baseball, but I knew that it was just a dead-end path for me, and I had seen way too many people in their mid to late 20s who signed a professional contract, played affiliated baseball, and then got done with no money, no skills, no plan, and maybe a couple kids and a wife. So with no plan, no skills, and a university studies degree from a school with probably a 95% acceptance rate, I wasn't really 100% sure with what I wanted to do. But I knew that I wanted to set myself up to have a different life. I didn't just want to live the life of, a coach, although I was super passionate about training, I was super passionate about the swing, and I knew that I could help tons and tons of athletes. The problem was that I saw the life of a coach. I saw what it was gonna take to actually go down the path of being a college coach. And so I didn't want that for my life. I thought that maybe there was a different way and that I could actually build a better life for myself. And so in October of 2021, just a few months after my baseball career was over, I moved out here to Scottsdale, Arizona. I had about $1,000 in my bank account. Didn't know what I was gonna do with my life, but all I knew was that I was going to create something of myself. When I first got to Arizona and started working in the corporate world, I went headfirst into it. I was dedicated to making this work. And after being absolutely psychotic about my baseball development, I quickly progressed in the business world. I learned all about business operations, I learned how to sell, and just generally best business practices from people who were millionaires or multi-millionaires in the career that I wanted to go down, or so I thought. Because after about 3, 6, 9 months, I started looking around and I saw these people who were super successful, and I knew that I wouldn't ever trade places with them. I wanted to figure out a way that I could be in control of my own life, and so I started studying how to make money on the internet. And so, like most other people, when they say they're gonna start to learn how to make money on the internet, I just dip my toe in the water. I would watch YouTube videos and listen to some podcasts, but there was nothing really that I was actively doing to improve my life. Meanwhile, I started getting pretty depressed because I felt like I was stagnant in my life. And as a recurring theme, I was still struggling with drugs and alcohol. And one night, I made some pretty poor choices. I drunk drove home. I did a bunch of cocaine, and I remember it being 7 o'clock in the morning after not having gone to bed all night and just laying there wide awake in my bed thinking, you need to make a change, and the reason why you're unhappy right now is your own fault. And so from that point moving forward, everything started to get better for me. I started going super hard in the gym. I started studying internet business every single day, and I completely isolated myself from the world to work on myself first. So that way I could turn myself into a more valuable individual so that I wouldn't have to rely on anybody else around me. For the next 4 months, I dedicated my entire life to becoming the best version of myself. And I knew that when I got the right opportunity, it would smack me right in the face. That opportunity came one day when I got a text from my old roommate in junior college saying that he moved into a house in Scottsdale, Arizona, right down the street from where I was living, and said that he wanted to train baseball players out of his backyard and online. He had this crazy vision that he was gonna put a mound in the backyard, and he already had all this weight room equipment that he bought. And I was learning so much on my own that I felt like I just needed to go out there and start applying everything that I was doing, because information itself is not actually the valuable part, it's the application of the information. So that way you can learn where the gaps are in your knowledge. And so I saw this as an opportunity to worst case scenario learn, and best case scenario, it could actually be something. I told him that I thought we should link up and partner together. And he had a little bit of a social media following, and he knew how to train athletes, and I knew how to train athletes, and I was pretty good on the computer because of my last 10 months working in my mortgage job. And so we launched this online training business on the back of his Instagram page, and in the first 30 days, we made $20,000. And then the next month we made $28,000, and I ended up quitting my 9-to-5 job after just 2 months of launching that business. Over the next 10 months, we made over $250,000 selling baseball training online, and I was able to work with over 270 athletes, including high-level Division I prospects, actual D1 athletes, kids that went to Ivy League schools, and even professional athletes, all because of the power of online training. After a while, my partner and I, we didn't necessarily see eye to eye anymore, and we wanted to do different things with the business. And so we thought it was best if we went our separate ways. And so when we split up, I thought maybe this might be the time that I start teaching other people how to do what I was doing. My best friend in the entire world, Ian Jenkins, put me in contact with his friend, Drew Richard. And Drew was trying to make money with online training, but he was having trouble selling it. He didn't know exactly what to put out there to actually promote it, and he didn't really know what to provide inside of his program. And so I made him a pretty banger offer. He wouldn't have to pay me anything up front, and that we would do a percentage-based deal that based on the sales that he made up to a certain point, he would pay me a percentage of what he made. After just 30 days of working together, Drew went from struggling to make sales online and not really knowing how to actually monetize a following to making $15,000 in literally just 30 days. And so when Drew actually had success, I realized there was an actual demand for sports coaches to learn how to actually make money online. But the problem was, I did a lot of work for Drew, and I wasn't exactly sure how I could get this level of information into the hands of everybody and make it super accessible. I couldn't handle the amount of clients that I would need in order to actually have the level of impact that I wanted to. Because at the time I was just a one-man show. And so I thought to myself, how can I actually get the information out to the people that need it the most? And I thought, what better way to learn how to do something than to buy a coaching program? And that's exactly what I did. I bought a $5,000 coaching program that taught me how to package and sell my information on the internet. Because previously I was doing online baseball coaching. However, I wasn't exactly sure how to sell more of a coaching program that taught people how to make money than to go to somebody who literally does it for a living and has worked with hundreds, if not thousands of people, helping them do the exact same thing. And the business started in October of 2023, and I signed up 2 new clients in October. And then November, I signed up 4. And then in December, I signed up 6. And then in January, I signed up 8. And then in February, we were absolutely rolling. And so now I see my coaches, my clients that I'm actively working with, are doing the exact same thing for these athletes, and they're making the highest level training information accessible to everybody all over the world, not even so much over the country. And I've realized I'm giving opportunities to not only ex-athletes who honestly most of the times are trapped in a facility, or they feel like they need to work for a school or they need to work for an organization, but they don't actually have any way to create real freedom for themselves. While I may have had some success in my business career, no matter how much success I have, the number one thing that fills me up every single day and gets me out of bed in the morning and makes me want to shoot these videos and makes me want to put myself out there on Instagram and be vulnerable is so that maybe, just maybe, I can help one more person see the light. I can help one more athlete get the support that they need. Because at the end of the day, if you're only focused on yourself, like I was for most of my life, you're going to feel empty. But when you think about how can I have the biggest impact on the world and how can I create the best environment for other people to thrive in, not only does your life pan out way better, but you end up feeling way happier in the process as well. I work with a client who runs a 7-figure online baseball training business, and out of respect for this client, I'm going to keep their identity confidential. The best thing he's ever said to me is that the amount of money that he generates every single month from his online training business is a direct reflection from the number of lives that he can impact. Because every single one of those athletes that are paying to join his program are getting quite possibly the best program that they could ever be put on. Or like my client Connor, who started out with no social media following and was underpaid and overworked, working with athletes who didn't really value his services, to now he makes $30,000 every single month training athletes online. And not to mention, he's working with high-level professional athletes, including Olympians and people playing in the major leagues. Or like Reagan, who literally gave me her last dollar to join my program and made $17,000 in the first 30 days. I'll be honest with you, I do make these videos to try and sell my coaching program, but it's only for in-person sports coaches who are established, get great results from their athletes, and they want to use social media to reach athletes all over the country so they can make more money and detach their income from their time, all without sacrificing the quality of their coaching. So if that's you, then go ahead, click the link in the description and watch the free training that'll show you exactly how you can expand your training business online, just like all my clients.